Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. We're still doing our 3v3 thing, and it's the final group of 3v3, at least for this championship. So, we're in match 1 of that, and I've got a really strong opponent. You can see that they're a Kyber combatant, and they wear that badge proudly, which more power to them. You can see that they have a Relic 7 General Skywalker, which is something I haven't run into in the current Grand Arena Championship, so that was going to be interesting, of course. And just looking at the stats, you can see that my opponent doesn't actually... I mostly have the advantage in relics. They have pretty strong relics. I think that I do have a little bit of an edge there. And in terms of gear, I do have the edge as well. I have more gear 12 and gear 13. And then I also have the edge in mods, in fact, except for in the higher end, on the plus 20, they have more than me, which go figure. But, and then looking at the stats, I am ahead of my opponent a little bit in a couple things, but you can see that they have they do have more zones beat than me overall, and our scores are pretty close. So anyways, we're pretty evenly matched in general. It's going to be a good match. So I logged in, and they had immediately started attacking, and you can see I took a couple screenshots. They soon thereafter wiped out my fleet, and so they had a decent score, but I had stopped them on a couple things, and I'll show you guys my defenses in a little bit. But right away, you notice that my opponent has General Skywalker up front, and, Relic 7 Skywalker is going to be really hard to shift, and a lot of other pretty respectable teams on defense. And so we needed to take out General Skywalker right away. He was going to stall me out entirely if I couldn't take him out. So jumped in with my Commander Luke. He's Relic 3. The other two, Chewie and Han, they're both Relic 7, and specifically modded and, everything geared for taking out Skywalker. So, I was feeling pretty confident that I'd be able to take him out. I'd heard that there were issues trying to take out Skywalker in 3v3 with Commander Luke and Han. Now, you can see here, I'm freeze framing for a second. This is a mistake that I made. I need to save that stun on Han. That is really important. I need to be able to save that move right there, and that'll come into play in just a minute. And so you can see that I did use my special there rather than my shot, and actually I probably should have used that shot right away there, because this is even worse. I used that shot right before Skywalker came up from topple, so he immediately kills Chewbacca, and I have a chance here to maybe do something. I could have stunned him and then gotten 2 more shots and probably taken him out, but instead I got countered to death and lost. So that wasn't awesome, not my favorite thing at all, and I wasn't really sure what to do. Now, one thing I've neglected to tell you guys up until now, but I'll tell you, is I've restructured my defenses in a huge way, and I have a lot of really strong teams on defense, and so I was going to need to counter different teams with, obviously different teams of my own, and so, I didn't have a lot of my normal offensive teams available. You see that I'm using Ahsoka here with Padme because my General Kenobi is on defense, for example. And so, these clones are all high relic, and I need to be able to take them out. And honestly, after scouting my opponent's defenses and everything, I was pretty confident I could take Padme here and not necessarily need them that much for later matches. And so, we're taking out 5s first. I know that some people like to take out like Rex first, and then 5 sacrifices himself, and then after he sacrifices himself, then you just take out Rex again, and then Echo. I decided not to, just because I have courage, and my opponent had modded really high health on his 5s, so courage was going to take him out pretty easy. So pretty easy match there. But it doesn't necessarily solve my problem right now with the lone General Skywalker. And, right after I had failed my attack on Skywalker, one of my friends actually sent me a screenshot of a lone Skywalker having defended 14 times against his entire roster, and having lost and not cleared any other teams. So, I was pretty pretty cognizant of the fact that he could probably run through most of my teams, and I needed to find a good counter. Now, this was a counter that I've seen a couple different times with Chirrut and Nest and Thrawn. And, you know, Thrawn essentially just goes in and hugs Skywalker while Nest takes him out. And that, so I was like, great, I'll do that. And I jumped in, and Skywalker immediately killed Thrawn, so that was wonderful. I thought actually this was fairly promising to start with. You know, I was able to get more than half of his health down, and you know, I was doing good, and then everything just went to hell pretty quick. I guess that happens. If I had Fracture up, then probably would have worked. So I am going to freeze frame in this extremely dynamic pose here, and just show you guys this team, you know, talk about it just for a minute. And, you know, the goal here is just to take Skywalker out. It doesn't concern itself with getting banners or anything, which is really what I need. We have a pre-taunt, we have Palpatine and Imperial Probe Droid, and Skywalker, who is under 100,000 max health. So what's happening here is the Shore Trooper is going to eat the initial aggro, and then Palpatine, who's just a little bit faster than Probe Droid, is going to use his second special, which takes health down on all three characters, which hurts her banners, but then it also triggers the Imperial Probe Droid explosion ability, and that's exactly what we want. So let's see how that pans out. So Shore Trooper actually did a pretty good job of eating that damage, and Skywalker just went down like a chump. So, I mean, 19 banners is not great. It's almost nothing, but I did clear the squad with minimal investment, frankly. I almost never use the Probe Droid or Shore Trooper. So great win there. Something I'm gonna have to do in the future. And I was just frustrated because I had lost my Nest and Thrawn, which means that two of my teams that I use all the time are just disabled and unavailable now. So I'm gonna have to start getting creative with a lot of different counters here. Now, this is a pretty interesting match. I've been taking my bounty hunters. They're all Relic 3 or 4. You know, I think only Boba's Relic 4, but the other two are Relic 3. But you know, this is against a Relic 4 Spirit, and she's modded for speed. You know, with a lot of offense as well. But it's not necessarily the most difficult comp, especially because Zombie and Asajj are both Gear 12. But you know, Relic 4 on Spirit is going to be pretty difficult. And you know, the thing is, I took the bounty hunters for the same reason I always take them. I want to be able to deny the revive with, you know, Jango has his unique and Boba has execute. So as long as I can kill a Night Sister with one of those abilities, then Zombie isn't going to be able to, you know, revive them at all. And so, you know, I'm just trying to target and get these Night Sisters down to a lower protection level first. And Spirit hits hard though, man. it's rough. So, you know, Jango actually got taken out the first time. He has Bounty Hunter's Resolve, so he comes back. Now I'm looking for some way to kill something before Jango just gets taken out completely and I lose the match. And so, you know, we're just doing the best we can. Now Jango can't ignore the taunt from Zombie, which is really problematic, and the one who can ignore the taunt is stunned. So there's lots of things going on here. Luckily, Jango was able to get a win or get a kill and revive himself, you know, restore all of his health and protection, and his Bounty Hunter's Resolve. Then Boba was able to get the same. So now you'll see that throughout this match I've been sometimes just targeting Spirit just to get her foresight off, and the reason you want to do that is she gains more damage for having foresight up. So if you could just take that down, it won't actually damage her necessarily, you know, unless you can shoot through the foresight, but it will actually materially impact her ability to deal damage. So, you know, I think she went down to some flame damage or something like that in the end, and Zombie doesn't revive her for that because I didn't technically kill her. But anyways, one way or another, I was able to get the win there with decent banners. Lucky to escape, honestly. There were a couple times that if RNG had rolled a different direction, I might have had a rough time. So did get into the back zone here. And one thing I do want to point out, I'm not going to show you guys my defenses quite yet. I will at the end. But one thing I want to point out is I can't fail another attack. If I fail another attack, then I will lose the match. My opponent did leave me with a little bit of wiggle room, but not too much. So, you know, they actually had an extremely strong offense. I was very impressed. We'll talk about that later, though. So one of the things that I did was I put Jedi Knight Revan on defense, which means that I need to find another way to kill General Grievous. And you know, I've seen videos now a couple times. My buddy Indigo actually lost his most recent round to someone who, his name is Blade Baka, and he's a really strong player. He used clones to take out Indigo's General Grievous, and then my friend Klesso did a bunch of tests on that as well to verify, and it totally works. So the goal here is you get one of your clones killed, and you know, that triggers the 5's sacrifice, and then all we're doing now is waiting for the Rex Annihilate move to be able to take out Grievous. So you see I'm targeting B1 here instead of Grievous, just because we don't want B1 to be marked when it's time to annihilate. So I did put it at 1x speed, did a bunch of damage, and destroyed Grievous in one shot, and now we're just gonna clean it up and get the really, really messy 48 banner win, but it is a first shot win, so that's good. You know, and at this point I'm at pretty even ground with my opponent. If I need to be pretty efficient moving forward. And you know, the good news is there's all these teams I felt like were pretty solvable, even though I didn't have Thrawn or Nest available. And so, you know, I wanted to take my Traya team against the bugs. I had seen that my opponent put bugs on defense quite a bit in the pre-scouting thing, and you'll notice that Nihilus isn't there. Nihilus was going to be needed for other duties later, and Nihilus isn't necessary anyways. My opponent did have pretty high relics on these bugs, but honestly, like it's not really a huge factor. Like the really huge strength of Geonosians is having a huge health pool and only having 4 bugs, even though that's pretty strong at times. Like if your opponent takes pretty weak bugs, you know, Spy doesn't have a lot of hit points, Soldier doesn't have a lot of hit points, Brood Alpha can have a lot of hit points, but you know, their health pool isn't that big, and they're not doing a huge amount of damage either. You know, there's not 6 of them hitting every time, there's only 4, or really if you can get Isolate off pretty quick, which I didn't here, but if you can, then there's only 3 doing damage. So really Nihilus isn't that necessary for this. You know, there is always the threat that Spy is going to go crazy and just one-shot Scion or something like that. And I was nervous about that, to be honest, but you know, finally I did get his immunity buff up, and so now even if Spy goes, she's going to have to target Scion because she has the debuff, and you know, then he'll just come back to life anyway. So 52 banners here, and that's not too bad, honestly. Don't need Nihilus there at all. Not in 3v3. In 5v5, that might be a different story. Alright, so we've been working through all these different teams pretty quick, actually. We're only like 13 minutes into this video, and I've already cleared the majority of teams remaining, but you know, there was only one more team that I was pretty sure what I wanted to do before I started really mapping out exactly what other teams I wanted to use. And I did map them out a little bit earlier, but you'll see I took my Geonosians off of my defense for offense, and I wanted to counter Nute. And this is something I keep seeing a lot of people doing, and I just can't deny the effectiveness, frankly. So I'm going to start using Geonosians. I don't know how to use them on offense at all. You know, I use them in PvE during the territory battle, and that's about it. So, the awesome thing, there's a couple different good strengths here. So Spy has a Dispel, and then I also took Sunfac as well, just to make sure I have another Dispel, because Droideka could otherwise just maybe run the table on me if I didn't have a consistent Dispel. But the awesome thing about this team against Nute is every time he tries to extort one of your characters, you can just pay it off, which is wise. You always want to pay off the extortion if you can. And when you do, then it still calls all the other Geonosians to assist. And, that's the thing that's always the conflict that people have is, oh, well, I'm going to give up an entire turn to buff the enemy's team. And, Nute is just good like that. Like, it's really fun. That, like, I really love that mechanic, frankly. But, it can be really frustrating to try to make that decision. And in this case, you just don't have to make that decision with Geonosians. Like, it's just not something you have to worry about. Because you pay off the extortion, and suddenly, your whole team still attacks, except for maybe the character who used extortion. But that you still have 3 attacks going in. So this was actually really easy 54 banners. I thought maybe Droideka would be able to do something, like one-shot one of my characters if I got unlucky, but that wasn't too bad. So was able to get the 54 banner win there, and that's a positive experience for my first foray into offense with Geonosians. And now I'm going to pretend to be like Klesso here and kind of map out all the different teams that I have to counter, and all the different teams that I've come up with to be able to counter them. On the left, you see my opponent's teams remaining, and on the right, you see the teams that I am prepared to use on offense. And it was pretty tricky trying to find a way to counter all these different teams. But finally, I found a set of teams that I thought had a pretty decent chance of being able to counter them. I'm trying to use my Nihilist to best effect, so I wanted to try Vader lead against Bossk, and we'll see how that goes, but I felt like that had a pretty high chance of success just because, Nihilists can probably hang on and be able to annihilate everyone before that team is destroyed. And, after that, I have Wampa here, and Wampa does not have a lead, that Wampa team, but he doesn't really need a lead. He can just kill that old Ben team, and he's the only offense on the team, but I have Watt there to give more offense and, heal the team and everything, and they're all rebels, and Wampa doesn't miss on his basics, so there's, that's a pretty no-brainer solution. Kylo Ren would probably be able to take out that Shaak T Bastila squad pretty easy. Not Bastila, Barriss, whatever. And Jedi Training Rey was probably going to be able to counter that Dooku team, which meant that I needed a team to beat the Carth team, which I had Machine Gun Leia, which works. It's not efficient necessarily, but it definitely works. So that was what I was going to do, moving in. So let's see how it all played out. Alright, so first I wanted to use my Machine Gun Leia team because that was probably the highest degree of uncertainty in my mind of being able to counter some team. And, they are really well modded. My opponent only had a Gear 11 mission, and the rest were Gear 12, so I didn't feel like any relics were necessarily a big deal. And so the whole goal of this team is to make Leia do a ton of exposes through C-3PO's special moves, and because Akbar also has the ability to, whenever someone uses a non-attack ability, then that calls someone else to do their attacks, and Leia does 3 attacks in a row. And, if she's going and she uses her stealth ability, then she'll either call 3PO or Akbar to go. And if 3PO goes, then he's exposing. So the goal here, my 3PO is modded to have a lot of potency. And so even though my opponent Zalbar had a lot of tenacity, I was able to get a confusion on him, which means that he can't taunt passively. And, that's essential. If you can't get that off, if you're if his potency, or rather his tenacity, is way higher than your potency, then maybe try to use a different counter. But otherwise, you see that I'm getting all these exposes from Leia. She's only gear 11, so she's super squishy, and she's not doing a lot of damage on her actual hits. She's doing a ton of damage off of exposes. So you see Akbar went down at the end there, but was still able to get 50 banners here. Pretty good result. And I just needed one more team to be able to fall, and that worked out pretty well. Gear 11 Leia, I mean, honestly, if she's gear 12, probably doesn't change that much. Maybe if Akbar was gear 13, but that's not an option I'm really willing to contemplate at this point. So, got that win, and now we're going to try the Vader against Bossk, and I was pretty sure this was going to work. And I guess we'll see how it goes. But, Nihilus we're just trying to do hide the Nihilus, so we've got Sith Trooper here just to make sure that, nothing can get through. And, they put ability block on everyone, and I don't know. That's frustrating, because Nihilus wanted to go and use his Force Drain immediately. Didn't work out that way, so it took a couple turns for Nihilus to go. But everything was going okay. I decided to ability block, or rather do a little bit of damage to Boba. Probably should have done ability block on him, honestly, now in hindsight. But, we're just trying to get our Annihilate up. Like that's the whole goal. We're just holding for Annihilate. And honestly, you can see the Vader's health is actually not regenerating the way I would have thought it would. And, there are dots here. I just would have thought that he would have, regenerated more health. He is regenerating a little bit, but not too much. And Vader went down way faster than I thought he would. I decided to annihilate Boba there because I figured now they don't have any offense left. Like, I can just hide behind Sith Trooper and his really crazy defense, and I'll just be okay. And I'll be safe. I'll be able to win. And then Sith Trooper died, like, really, really fast. And Nihilus started swearing, and, not the result at all that I expected. This was a total shock to me. Like, I genuinely had no idea this was going to happen. And so I thought the Vader would win. I really did. And, in hindsight, I think that, the Relic 4 on Bossk is a huge deal. And I probably should have annihilated Bossk first, honestly. At least then I would have been able to take out the leadership. But anyways, we needed to move on to these other counters because I was fairly sure I was going to be able to crack the Bossk Dengar combo. And, I didn't have any other teams that could really deal with this Shaak T clone team anyways. It's super resilient. It's not necessarily the strongest team out there, but I didn't have a lot of strong teams remaining. I didn't have Watt available, for instance, to be able to, carry the team and be able to, make another really strong team. So I needed to make sure that the First Order team was going to be able to win, take out Shaak T first, and then I would have taken out Clone Sergeant, except Shaak T had stealthed him. So took out Barriss, and then Sergeant wasn't a big deal. So maybe that was a little bit of overkill, but happy enough to do that. And now we can move on to this bottom zone, and I still have my Jedi Training Rey team, and honestly, I at that point I was like, well, maybe I should use Rey on the bounty hunters, because she would have taken out that squad in one shot anyways. So while I was thinking about that, I decided to take the Wampa team, and I like to give Wampa the opportunity to lead every once in a while. And you see the Xaereth Rebel Pathfinder is here. He's just there to be a taunter. So what goes? He puts the taunting tech on the Pathfinder. He puts the weapons tech on Wampa, just so he does even more crazy damage, and Wampa does double damage against rebels anyways. So, and he doesn't miss. So Old Ben here is just hanging out with, his leadership is that he gives his whole team more evasion, which is just really annoying. thing anyways. Like I hate dealing with that, but every time they evade, they also gain turn meter. And so, we're just trying to wait. We're trying to hide Wampa from all the damage. My Wampa isn't super well modded at this point still. And, he's gear 12 and everything, so he's not necessarily super vulnerable. But, against Chirrut, if he got a couple good hits in, like, things might go south. So, I decided if I could hide him behind the Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, which they don't have a way to ignore or taunt, then, yeah, and they don't really have enough damage to be able to take Pathfinder out. So if I could do that, then Wampa would be safe. He'd be able to, keep gaining stacks of damage, and 54 banners is, that was a pretty fun match, honestly. I recommend doing that. I'm going to try that again. I'm also going to try to throw some gear on Wampa at some point, so look forward to that. But eventually I decided I didn't really have another team that could take out this Dooku team, not consistently at least. I thought maybe troopers would be able to target him down, focus him down before he was able to get any stuns or anything, but you just never know. So, first move, you want to put ability block and daze on him if you can at all. And honestly, now looking at how much damage I did to him, probably troopers would have been fine here. But I don't know. I just thought I had a lot of strong options, I thought, against the Bossk team. So, I wanted to guaranteed, as many points as possible here. And so, Jango finally came out of hiding. He's always immune to damage on his first couple turns here in this situation because he has a Separatist lead. And, Sunfac is so easily controlled. Like, he's not a really good tank for this team, frankly. I don't think so anyways, just because he's slow, and once he finally does taunt, then you just have to dispel it once, and then he can't taunt for, like, 3 more turns. And by then, you've either killed his whole team, or he's... I don't know, he's just kind of worthless here, in my opinion. Like, he's great with Watt, who can give him perpetual taunt, but just on his own, he doesn't do much. So I was really annoyed. I was one off of getting Illuminated Destiny and getting everyone up to 54 banners. They were like just a tiny bit of protection off, and failed. So anyways, I went in with resistance first against Bossk. I figured I'll just stun him and deal with him. And Rey died really fast. I forgot that you don't really get exposes if you don't have Jedi training Rey on the team. And this is a pretty big mistake on my end. You can see I'm like, I thought about forfeiting, and then I was like, no, I'm stacking damage with Finn. Like, eventually maybe I'll be able to just one-shot Bossk. And the reality is I just got taken out like so fast and easy. So after that, I knew I was probably going to lose. There was no real way to recoup all the banners that I'd lost from failing against this team. So I thought I'd try Embo here, just for fun. I don't know. Do you notice how much fun I'm having? I skipped ahead to where Embo died like 30 seconds in, and I'm kind of underutilizing these bounty hunters. Like, I probably should be using these bounty hunters somewhere. Like, Dengar especially is really great on defense, and I'm just doing nothing. I'm not even using him for offense. So anyways, that failed, and I was starting to get desperate. So I took in Hux, decided, who knows whether this is going to work. Honestly, I have no idea if it's going to work, but he's only 3-star, but he is gear 12 because of CG's weird fail on gear that they had. So anyways, we've got the pilot that I never use, and my pretty decent but still only gear 12 first order stormtrooper, and I have no way to regenerate protection at all. I'm pretty new to this team. My mods on the pilot aren't very good at all, but you see how much damage I'm doing. Hux is going to be so nuts. Once you have Sith Empire, or once you have Sith Trooper, Red Trooper is what we've been calling him. Once you get Red Trooper up to respectable star and gear levels, this team is going to be so crazy just because of how much damage you do on basic attacks. Like, I chewed through a Relic for Bossk that no one else could even touch. Like, just so easily with kind of like leftover characters. And Hux isn't doing damage because he's only 3 stars. So that that really surprised me how easily I won that one. Maybe RNG was with me, I don't really know, but really good results regardless. So finally unlocked ships, and they had the Millennium Falcon fleet there, and like, I wasn't really thinking that straight. I should have probably tried an undersized win here, but I was so far back in points, like I knew I wasn't going to win. So I just took my usual Negotiator fleet, and I'm actually going to fast forward this a little bit. It's not super interesting, to be honest. So I really like having Sunfac on defense here. I'm going to probably start putting Sunfac in some place in my Millennium Falcon fleet as well on defense. We'll see, but the goal here is just to take out the 2 tanks, because you can't take out the Millennium Falcon. And one mistake I made in a previous match was not taking my taunting tank in, my clone sergeant, right away. I should have done that immediately in that match, so I made sure not to make that same mistake twice here. And clone sergeant is actually such a good ship. Honestly, guys, I would really recommend gearing him up a little bit. Mine is only gear 12, but man, that ship has really made a huge difference in my fleet. So, took out the 2 tanks, and now we're just taking out the support cast, trying to take out the Falcon. Of course, the Ghost came in just to try to ruin all of our protection scores, and take him out, and now we can just take out the Falcon at will. And there's not much we can do to regenerate our protection, and we got 60 banners. I probably could have gotten 62. I should have just undersized it, but forgot to do that. My mistake. And I did get the full clear, so that was great. And as I suspected, my banner total was just complete total. Wow, I almost just swore, which would have been awesome. It wasn't good though. So I lost. Unfortunate. My opponent one-shot my Darth Revan team, and I'll talk about that for just a minute here before we move on. So I had looked at my opponent's defense and offense logs, and they'd taken their Darth Revan, which was significantly slower than mine, and Badstilla. Both of them were slower than mine, and their relics weren't that high. They'd taken them on offense every single time, and so I figured I would probably get just a free win using my Darth Revan on defense. So I put Malak there. I wanted to make sure that I got that, huge roadblock. And my opponent apparently just used Padme, and they were like, I'm surprised it worked. Like we were talking. He's a cool guy. Just in case you care. But he said he used Padme on it and just ended up one-shotting my Darth Revan team, which is like, my Darth Revan is really high speed, really high power. Like, I don't know how that works. I don't know if that's just like a consistent counter, or it's just because my Malak is only Relic 4 or what. But really disappointing result there, because I thought for sure I'd get a free defense. And in the end, it didn't really matter. My opponent had more banners than me, even if he had failed one more attack. So, there's that for humiliation. But, I think the thing that really derailed me the most on my end was I just couldn't... I couldn't recoup from that loss against General Skywalker. Like, I made that one mistake, which I don't necessarily regret. Like, I think I'll do better next time. But otherwise, like, I wasted that Nest and Thrawn team, and I probably could have foreseen it happening. Like, there is an element of RNG, of course. Thrawn can just get one shot. I probably should have just put Shore Trooper in there with him and had Thrawn be the lead. But, hindsight's 20/20, and otherwise, so I missed those, and that put me back so many banners, and I had to use a lot of unoptimized teams, and in the end, it cost me. So, I'm not belly aching about General Skywalker. He's fine. I'm just kind of evaluating, and now you guys get to see me. I've never lost 2 matches in a row, except for now. This is the very first time, and it figures that I would actually hit this level of adversity at this point, just because I'm at 99 wins overall since Grand Arena started, and you can't get your 100th win easily. So hopefully next match is going to be hard, and I can earn my 100th win, and move on. But anyways, guys, take a look at my other defenses. I think that they're actually pretty strong. I'm going to tweak them a little bit for next week, but otherwise, thanks for watching. Sorry I lost again. It happens, obviously, but you know, we just got to show some resilience and move on. I'm still easily on track to make Kyber again, so that's great. And anyways, I think I'm going to leave you guys here. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.